Well, I'm going to be talking to you guys about a graph that was circulating Facebook. Yes, this graph was made by American Council on Science and Health and Real Clear Science. And this graph is basically telling people who they should trust as far as a media source. They're saying, let's look at which media outlets base their coverage on science and which ones just, base it on opinion, I guess you would say. But they don't actually use science to back up why they put each different media outlet in a different category. They just kind of leave it up to people to guess and assume that they're telling the truth. And what's interesting here is they put Infowars along with Food Babe, Mercola, Naturaluz, all under the same category as ideologically driven and poor reporting. And they even put a disclaimer, pure garbage. Well, this is very interesting coming from the people who created this graph, American Council on Science and Health and Real Clear Science. Well, let's talk about the American, Council on Science and Health. They put out an article also not too long ago saying 20 reasons not to feed your family organic. And this piece was completely biased, and they were just trying to do a hit piece on small business, organic, local farmers. And it just seemed as though this article talked a lot on basically being pro-agricultural big farming, like pro-Monsanto. So let's see. In these 20 reasons not to feed your family organic, it says, too expensive and poor quality. False. Since industrial farming has taken over the American agricultural industry, small business farms have kind of dwindled and went out, and only now are we seeing this comeback of these small business-owned organic farms. Therefore, their costs are going to be greater because they're doing it on a smaller scale, whereas these industry giants that have taken over the agricultural industry, they can afford to sell their stuff for cheaper because they're mass producing. Not to mention, when you flood a market with lots of industrial foods, you can naturally keep lowering the price lower and lower, whereas the organic foods, there's not as much of it, so there's a higher demand for it, so they actually can ask for a higher price. Here's another claim. Promotes child labor in Africa. Let's go ahead and refute this one. False. If people supported more farming in the U.S., specifically smaller family-operated farms, we wouldn't need to use labor from Africa because we could just rely on more small organic farmers around the United States to farm and create jobs and create that industry going. And that's already been what's been happening. We've seen a larger amount of organic farm co-ops and organic farm businesses coming into existence because people are wanting organic food. And this is why we see these giant industry pesticide, using agricultural corporations like Monsanto freaking out. The next one is anti-GMO, anti-pesticide research based on poor activist science. False. Actually, there are many studies out there that show that GMOs are a health hazard. And, even though these big Monsanto corporations do not want you to believe this, there are so many studies out there that reference the health hazards, even one from the World Health Organization saying that glyphosate, which is used on GMO crops, is a carcinogen. And let's go to another one that they assert. They actually assert that organic food causes an increased risk of cancer. What? How does that even make sense? Organic is organic, like from nature, and organic foods have been around since the beginning of time. What do you think most animals eat in the wild? Organic foods. Do any animals in nature spray pesticides on their food before they eat it? No. So this is just absolute hogwash. I cannot believe what I'm hearing here. And I have a list right here of scientific studies that show that GMOs cause cancer, that glyphosate is linked to all kinds of health problems and cancer. So let's just name off a couple of these so that we can show these people over here at American Council on Science and Health and Real Clear Politics that Infowars does use science to back up what we're saying. Dr. Hoppin, glyphosate exposure linked to respiratory problems in farmers. Another one, Dr. Parks, women who use glyphosate have higher risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis. Here's another one. Occupational glyphosate and sun exposure linked to increase in skin cancer. Another one. Dr. Jaya Sumana. New research supports glyphosate connection to chronic kidney disease. And another one. The World Health Organization. Glyphosate is a probable human carcinogen. That's right. That's the World Health Organization, which is a very credible source. So for you guys to be saying here in this article that organic food causes increased risk of cancer and basically saying that there's nothing wrong with GMOs and GMOs are all fine and organic is bad, basically telling people to not feed their families organic food. Why is that? Is it so that you guys can profit because you want people to continue to buy your donors' foods? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how the American Council on Science and Health. Oh, let's look at their record here. We have ACSH is regarded as an industry-friendly group, and the organization's critics have accused it of being biased in favor of industry. In 2010, Whelan told The New Yorker that about a third of the organization's $2 million annual budget comes from industry. And which industry? I wonder when they're putting out articles like this to tell people to eat GMOs. Is it Monsanto? I do wonder. In addition, the documents revealed that the organization had on numerous occasions directly solicited donations from industry sources on the basis of projected reports on the specific issues in which those companies and industry organizations had such a stake. Wow, so you're telling me that they're getting money from companies that they're going to have projected scientific reports on, which those companies are going to have a stake in that scientific data affecting their business? Who's the ones that are really, biased on your little chart here, guys? Because that's what we're finding out here, even in your Wikipedia. So it's almost as though they're pointing the finger at Infowars for exactly what they're doing. In a 1979 People article, the information director of the FDA is quoted as saying, Whelan just makes blanket endorsements of food additives. Her organization is a sham and industry front. Wow, this is the information director of the FDA saying this. I mean, I would think that that speaks pretty loudly here. This is the Food and Drug Administration saying that these people are a sham. In 1982, the Center for Science in the Public Interest, a consumer advocacy group, published a report on ACSH's practices that stated, ACSH seems to arrive at conclusions before conducting studies through voodoo and alchemy. Bodies of scientific knowledge are transmogrified into industry-oriented position statements. Now let's take a look at their former medical director, a man named Gilbert Ross, who served time in a federal prison camp and had his medical license revoked for Medicare fraud before being hired by ACSH. And the ACSH still identifies Ross as one of its advisors. So there you have it, folks. These people have somebody that committed fraud as one of their advisors, and they want to sit here and say that Infowars is ideologically driven and poor reporting when we can actually back up what we're saying with science. And one of the things that I also found really interesting is some of these other ones that they listed as pure garbage alongside Infowars was Food Babe, Mercola, Infowars, and Natural News. And a lot of these sites do try to promote supplements and natural ways of eating, natural holistic health. And I could see why, the food giants, Monsanto, and them would be threatened. Pharmaceutical giants would definitely be threatened. So it seems like it's just these people just trying to put out more disinformation that Infowars is fake news. When in reality, if you actually fact check and look into the stuff that these people are producing, you find out that they are the ones that are producing fake news. They're the ones who are actually pointing the finger at us for what they themselves are doing. This is Millie Weaver signing off for the Infowars Nightly News.
You think our information's hardcore? You think our focus is brutal? Try our nutraceuticals. Try our supplements. We've taken Brain Force and made it Brain Force Plus. Now with 20% more in the bottle and an even more hardcore formula. You owe it to yourself to get these products. They really have worked for myself, my family. They have 5-star reviews by the thousands. Secure your Brain Force Plus today at InfoWarsLife.com. Now 20% stronger. Again, InfoWarsLife.com.